Hello and welcome to FameLab's Climate Change Communicators International Final. We're delighted that you could join us today. This is all made possible by the British Council, and if you've not come across the British Council before, they're the UK's organisation that look after cultural relations and educational opportunities, and we're delighted that they're making all this happen today. We've got a selection box of scientists in store, 3-minute bite-sized talks, all focusing on climate change science. Now you might be wondering who I am and where we are today. Well, I'm Jamie Gallagher, a science communicator from Glasgow, and that's exactly where we are. We're in Glasgow. And Glasgow is a particularly important city this year because it'll be playing host to the UN's International Climate Change Convention, COP26. And while my city is playing host to world leaders, I'll be playing host to FameLab's Climate Change Communicators International Final. Welcome. This is all part of FameLab, a special edition. FameLab is an international science communication competition that started in 2005 by Cheltenham Science Festivals. The British Council joined up in 2007 to take it around the world, and since then 40 countries have taken part, with hundreds of scientists sharing amazing, memorable, interesting science stories. The format is just a 3-minute presentation, no slides allowed. We are looking for content, clarity, and charisma. These are going to be amazing talks. This is a special edition as our scientists will be focusing purely on climate change science. In a second, we're going to meet our 10 finalists. But before I do, I'll just let you know that they have already started their journey. They spent 2 days together in a science communication masterclass, learning all of the skills that you're about to see demonstrated today. And this isn't the end of their journey either. The British Council is going to work with them in the future, continuing their science communication journeys. But let's meet them. Let's dash around the world and meet our 10 finalists.
Hello and namaste everyone. This is Navjeet Kaur from Mumbai, India.
Hi, I'm Emiliane from Brazil. I'm a scientist from Rio de Janeiro.
Hi, সবাইকে নমস্কার. This is Orko. I am from Chittagong, Bangladesh.
Mabuhay! My name is John Leo Algo, a proud son of Caloocan City in the Philippines.
Hello and namaste. I'm Aditi and I'm from Pune in India.
Hola, I'm Danny Daniels from Puebla, Mexico.
Hello, Namaskar. I am Mayur Bonkile from Mumbai, India.
Xin chào mọi người, mình là Minh Anh. Hello, this is Minh Anh from Hà Nội, Việt Nam.
Oi, hello, it's Larissa from Brazil. I'm talking from Rio de Janeiro.
Namaste, I am Pallavi Pokhrel from Kathmandu, Nepal.
So that is our 10 contestants, and I can't wait to see what they've got in store for us. But before we have that, let's just tell you a little bit about how today is going to work. Because we are international, because we are crossing every time zone, we've had to pre-record this show. But that doesn't mean that you can't interact with us. The chat box is live, the chat box is open, and we want you to connect with us. Keep the chat box open and into it. Throw thoughts, comments, questions, ideas, love, support. We want to connect with you. This is a science communication competition and we want to communicate with you. So make sure you are throwing lots of love and support into that chat box. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about what the contestants are going to experience. They will take to the virtual stage and share 3 minutes of interesting, amazing, memorable science with you. After that, their ordeal is not finished, as we'll pass on to our panel of judges who will throw questions to our contestants. And these questions might be about how they communicate, why their topic is important. They can be on anything. So it is a real challenge for our amazing contestants, but I can guarantee they have an amazing show in store for you. So who is going to decide who wins FameLab's Climate Change Communicators International Final? Well, you're going to get a say in that for yourself. We're going to tell you at the end how you can vote for your favourite talk. But we do have a judging panel and they're going to be deciding the overall winner. We have 3 judges to meet and they'll be looking for content, clarity and charisma. We'll explain that criteria in just a second. But let's go and meet each of our judges. First up is Alice Bell. Alice, over to you. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you do.
Hi, I'm Alice Bell. I am a co-director at a climate change charity called Possible, based in the UK. I've also worked in science communication and climate comms for too many years than I would like to admit to. And I used to lecture at the Imperial College Science Communication course. And recently I've written a couple of books on the climate crisis as well. The latest one is just out in America next week, Epic History of the Climate Crisis, called Our Biggest Experiment. And I'm really looking forward to hearing voices from a range of different areas and a range of different parts of the world.
Thanks, Alice, and welcome to the competition. Let's go over and meet our second judge now, who's Professor Yadvinder Mali.
Hi, I'm Yadvinder Mali. I'm Professor of Ecosystem Science at Oxford University, and my work focuses on how on the natural world, how climate change is affecting the natural world, and how we can protect or restore the natural world as a way of tackling climate change. And I particularly like fieldwork. Can often be found in tropical forests, in particular in the Amazon or in Africa, where I love doing long-term studies with lots of local collaborators and students and partners.
Thanks, Yadvinder, and let's go over to our third and final judge now, Nadia El-Adwadi.
I'm Nadia El-Adwadi. I am the chief editor of Nature Middle East. I'm also a freelance writer with many nature publications and clients, and also with Asia Research News. I've been freelancing for a very long time. I've been working as a science journalist and editor also for more than 20 years now. And I'm really, really excited to be here. I've been judging FameLab for several years, both in Egypt and internationally. So I'm really excited about this round of judging.
Thanks, Nadia, and welcome, judges. Now, the judges have a very set criteria. They'll be looking for the traditional 3 C's of FameLab: content, clarity, and charisma. So what do those mean? Content. Is there a science message at the core of the presentation? And is it accurate? Clarity. Is it explained in a clear and understandable way? Could a non-specialist follow along with the story? And charisma? Well, that's difficult to put your finger on, but do they draw you in? Do you want to know more about their topic? So content, clarity, and charisma. That's what we're looking for. Let's go back to our judges and ask what they'll be looking for from the presentations today. Alice, what makes a good science communication presentation for you?
I think one of the vital things about this sort of work is that you don't just inspire your audience, but you inspire them to talk to other people about what you've talked about. So the thing, I know that after today, I'm going to be talking to all of my colleagues and friends about the awesome talks that I saw at FameLab. And I'm going to be looking for those ones that have got that kind of virality that are infectious, that make me be enthusiastic, can make me an enthusiastic communicator about what you've talked to me about. So I want you to be the top thing that I'm telling my friends about this weekend.
Thanks, Alice. That's quite a challenge for our contestants. Yadvinder, what do you think is going to stand out for you?
I think I'm looking for the unusual angle, the unusual twist to the story. And it could be in the science, or it could be in the way the message is conveyed to the audience. Something that's a little bit quirky, a little bit out of the usual material that you might get on climate change.
Excellent. So we're building up quite a challenge already for our contestants. They're going to have to tick a lot of boxes. Nadia, science communication presentations, what makes a good one?
As a journalist, I look for structure. So I need to make sure that I can see how the content is organized in order for me to be able to understand it really well. And so that's the main thing I look for in any FameLab presentation, is the structure.
Thanks, Nadia. So that is a huge challenge to our contestants. We're looking for something that is going to impress us, a memorable take-home message, something engaging, memorable and wonderful. We have all of that in store, I promise you, and more. So it is now time to get started. So we have 10 contestants, and I've already had the pleasure of spending some time with them. And I found out that 2 of them really love singing. 1 of them can't sing. 1 of them has 4 children. 1 of them has 7 cats. And 1 of them hates cats. I'll leave you to decide which one is which. What I can guarantee is they are all fantastic communicators. And it's time now for our first FameLab talk. 3 minutes of interesting, memorable and engaging science. And for that, we're going all the way over to India to meet Navjeet Kaur. When you're ready, 3 minutes on the clock, take it away, Navjeet.
It's a vacation. Whether it's the waters or the woods, you can simply calm down in the pleasant sunshine and cool breeze. And you realize that most good things in life are just free gifts from nature. Enjoy the moment, because with our present lifestyle, these vacations may soon cease to exist. Our growing requirement of a convenient lifestyle requires massive amounts of trees to be cut down. Deforestation leads to unwanted amounts of carbon to be released in the atmosphere and thereby causing global warming. To protect ourselves from the effects of these, we must rebuild and restore our ecosystems. However, reforestation is easier said than done. These soils have become barren due to overexploitation and pollutants of various kinds. In order to support life, vegetation, a soil must be able to retain moisture, nutrients, and microorganisms. In order to revive such barren soils, we make use of fertilizers so that they can mimic the natural composition of a healthy soil. One such special kind of fertilizer makes use of particles which are very small in size. Just to give you an idea, about 10,000 such particles could fit just at the tip of your hair. Amazing. What are these things exactly? We call them nanoparticles. It is beneficial to use nanoparticles because just a small amount could suffice equivalent to bulk large quantities of other materials. How does this work? Just try to recall how powdered sugar dissolves much faster than bulk coarse sugar. Well, this happens because the smaller the particle size, the easier it is to dissolve or react with. The same happens to nanoparticles. Different kinds of nanoparticles can perform different functions. There is evidence that with the help of nanoparticles, soils are able to retain more moisture, seedlings are able to germinate faster, plants are able to absorb more nutrients, grow thicker stems, and fuller leaves. It seems just with a touch of nano, we may be able to reform reforestation dramatically. And then those lovely vacations may last forever.
Navjeet, that was amazing. Thank you very much for kicking off the competition in style. What a beautiful talk that was. Now we need to go to the judges, as Navjeet's ordeal is not finished yet because it's time for some questions. Yadvinder, do you have any questions that you would like to put to Navjeet?
So these nanoparticles, where do they come from? How can they be manufactured? Can they be manufactured in a way that can really help us with reforestation at the scale that might be needed?
Yes, sir, definitely. Actually, there are already fertilizers existing in market, commercial ones, for agricultural purposes. So manufacturing scale up has already happened. However, what I'm trying to work on is specifically for reforestation, where the requirements would change based upon the quality of the soil. So scale up is not a problem, sir. It's already happened. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yadvinder. Now, Alice, do you have a question that you would like to ask Navjeet?
You've got such a nice smile when you talk as well. I was thinking about the issue of trust, and also particularly because I know we've got another talk on nuclear. I mean, do you worry about lack of trust for this area, lack of public trust? It didn't really necessarily come up in your talk, but is it something that you are aware of and that you worry about, that there might be a backlash against these sorts of work?
Yes, thank you, Alice. That's a wonderful question. And I agree. Yes, there is mistrust which may happen. And however, as of now, we are getting a positive response from the commercialized fertilizers, which are being used for agricultural purposes, where the product is directly going to be consumed. So if you you can say the risk is reduced many times lesser when the product is directly not going to be consumed. But over here, we are only trying to grow trees into bigger, fuller, and just a faster way of regrowing trees. So I do agree, and that only pushes us to research more on this aspect and make them as safe as possible. So the research is still on. I wouldn't want to comment about that aspect right now, but yes, we do need to research more on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice. Let's pass over to our third judge for our final question. Nadia, what would you like to ask Navjeet?
I have a quick question. What are the nanoparticles made of exactly?
Yes, ma'am. The nanoparticles can be made up of the same bulk material, what is being used. For example, if there is a lack of iron or calcium or potassium in the soil, we can actually scale the size down to say about 10 or 50 nanometers, so that instead of using bulk quantities which generate massive amount of waste, cause drainage, and also have side effects, we can use only the exact amount required of the same material, but in a nano form. So that would work with minimal wastage and not causing side effects, at least the ones which are seen.
Thank you, judges, and well done, Navjeet. Thank you for kicking us off in such amazing style. Remember, the chat box is open. Did you love Navjeet's talk? Let us know how fantastic it was. And let's carry on our journey now. Let's move around the world to Brazil, where we'll meet Emiliane Dyer. Emiliane, when you're ready, take it away.
I'm here dressed as Maleficent to talk to you about a so-called villain just like her. The plastic. The Maleficent movie showed to us that stories usually have different points of view, and see her as a villain is just one way to look at it. Well, everybody knows the bad side of plastic, but I'm here to present to you its other side. Plastic brought progress for several areas, from medicine to aviation. Can you imagine fighting COVID without it? Masks, face shields, vaccines. And what about aviation? How much could an airplane evolve to the lightness, strength, and resistance of plastic? Look around you. Almost everything is made of plastic because it has unique properties and can be used in different places. So instead of banishing them from our lives, which I think it's impossible, we have to rethink our economy. Today's economy is called linear. We produce, we consume, and we dispose of, but that's not sustainable and generates a huge amount of waste. Instead of that, there is another economy called circular. In the circular economy, what was once considered waste can become a raw material for another product. And with that, we can even avoid the petroleum accident in oceans, for example, since most of the plastic we use nowadays are from petroleum sources. And speaking of that, today I brought here an incredible research that unites all of these subjects. I have here a plastic made from fruit seeds, which is considered a waste to the juice industry. And here, a water with a petroleum spot. This plastic is mixed with a very, very tiny particle made of iron that can be attracted by a magnet. We put this material on the petroleum spot, and with the help of a magnet, we can pull it out. Amazing, isn't it? So, what about take our responsibility? First, stop calling the plastic a villain, and let's encourage the circular economy politics in your house, in your neighborhood, in your city, and even in your country. Let's make the difference and save the world. Thank you.
Amelia, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing it. So a lot of science communication is about twisting things, looking at things in different ways, and you are challenging us to look at things in different ways, which I absolutely love. Now let's go to our questions. And Yadvinder, do you have any questions that you would like to ask Amelia?
I really enjoyed that. I loved your props and the little science experiment right on camera. It's very brave. On plastics, if you walk around the beaches of Brazil or anywhere else, you see lots of plastic waste everywhere. People disposing of things. How do we actually move to getting a circular economy that this plastic is getting back and being reused and recycled? What are the changes that are needed to stop that plastic being on the coasts of Brazil?
Yeah, I think we have to start looking at it as human actions. It's our actions that make plastic go to ocean. It's not the plastic fault. And I think we have to vote right for circular economy politicians that have interest in the environment and start doing your own job in your house, in your neighborhood. Do your part to save the world, actually, to save the environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yadvinder. Well done, Amelia. Let's move on to our second question now, which comes from Nadia. Nadia, what would you like to ask?
So you have this suggestion of adding iron to the plastic so that it's easier to remove from the environment, if I understood correctly. Yes. Are there any challenges to adding the iron to the plastic? And are there any challenges does it form waste does it form an extra challenge with waste if you have plastic with iron in it?
Yeah, actually, I use it biocompatible with environment iron. It's an iron oxide that degrades into iron and oxygen that are already in environment. So it's not that bad. And the plastic is also biodegradable for this experiment and this research. So that's not a big issue for it. But I suggested the circular economy, and not every plastic can be biodegradable, and because of that I suggested that they can be replaced in the chain of the economy. But this one is biodegradable, that's not a problem. We can choose the right plastic for the right action and the right material also, sorry. They're also iron.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, judges. And well done, Amelia. That was fantastic. Plastics, nanotechnology, costume changes, experiments, and we've only had 2 presenters. Let's move around the world to Bangladesh to meet our third contestant. In Bangladesh, we'll meet Orko Chakraborty. Orko, if you are ready, you have 3 minutes.
Hi everyone, this is Orko and I am from Bangladesh. Bangladesh is very popular for agricultural crops, and I try to solve problems by using these agricultural crops. So let me give an example today. Every year, the world is losing 7 billion trees. These trees can save us from the carbon pollution emitted by almost 115 million vehicles. Out of this total deforestation, 28% are done just to satisfy our huge appetite for paper. This leads to the destruction of 4.1 million hectares of forest, an area equivalent to the size of Netherlands. So ladies and gentlemen, think how our use of every single piece of paper impacting the world. So should we stop the use of paper? But that's impossible. So what can be the solution? The solution is jute. Yes, instead of wood, jute sticks that can be used to make paper. On average, a mature tree has a life cycle of 30 to 40 years. Whenever we are using these trees to make paper, we are losing the oxygen supply and other benefits from these trees permanently for 30 to 40 years. But jute, as a seasonal crop, we can cultivate it in every year. By using jute in the paper production, we can save those trees from being cut down, and we can cultivate the raw material jute for paper production year by year, which ensures a sustainable supply of raw material of paper without impacting the world. In order to produce paper, we need fiber, and jute has lots of fiber particles. In fact, it has more than wood. According to research, wood has 20 to 25% fiber, and the rest 75% is lignin and the water, whereas jute has 60 to 65% fiber quality, which is 40% more than wood. And we have made this paper in our pilot project. This is the paper which we have made from jute. This is off-white in the color, and it is 60 GSM in the quality. There are many variations that can be brought in the paper quality. So let's think how we can make our paper consumption eco-friendly and save the world by saving our trees. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Orko. I don't think I'll ever look at a notebook in quite the same way again. That was new to me. Let's go over to our judges for some questions now. Nadia, what would you like to ask Orko?
Orko, I'm going to need you to go back to basics for me as someone who knows very little about plants. What is jute? I need you to explain what this plant is.
Jute is a seasonal crop. It grows plenty, especially in the South Asian region like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan. So jute is a crop, but it has the sticky portion. So it is not so hard as wood, but it is soft, and people in the South Asian region are using this jute stick in order to make the fuel or like the fire, or it can be used as a fence. It is softer than bamboo, and it has lots of fiber quality. The leaves of jute, that can be used as a food also. People eat those things, but in paper production, the particle from jute we need is the jute sticks, which contains lots of fiber.
Thanks, Nadia. And let's get our next question from Yadvinder. Yadvinder, what would you like to ask Orko?
It might be a bit of a tough question because forests are my speciality, but I'll ask it anyway. If you have a forest rotating, growing for 40 years and then being harvested for paper and then being planted again, some people could argue that has a lot of value. You can have biocarbon stored in the forest. You can have more biodiversity in the forest than in the jute field. What would be your response to saying, well, actually, a rotational forest is a good way of actually producing paper?
In the case of the rotational thing, people tends to like to use the wood. So they are not too much encouragingly actually planting those trees. So when we are cutting a mature tree, we are losing the potential supplies from these trees permanently for 30 to 40 years. And another tree which can be equivalent in the beneficial level of that trees which has been cut down needs 30 to 40 years more. So this is the loss of 30 to 40 years. Just guess the life cycle of a human. It is 70 years at best. So almost half percentage of life cycle of human and the oxygen supply are completely being lost when we are cutting down these trees. So by using jute instead of this wood, we can bring more biodiversity because jute is a seasonal crop. And year by year, we can reproduce the jute in the same amount of landfill.
Thank you, judges, and well done, Orko, making us look at things in a completely different way. That is what FameLab is all about, a huge mix of topics. What are we going to hear about next? Let's find out. Let's travel around the world again and let's go to the Philippines. And in the Philippines, we'll meet John Leo Algo. John Leo, what have you got in store for us?
How has the COVID-19 pandemic changed your life? For me, it has made me become more reliant on my devices out of necessity. Like my phone, for example. We all have dropped our phones at least once in our lifetime, right? And one small crack on your phone screen, it's not a big deal, right? But if we're not careful, one more fall and this piece of glass could become damaged beyond repair. And if that happens, this phone screen would have reached its tipping point. A tipping point, by the way, is a threshold that when exceeded causes a massive, likely irreversible change to a system. The work of climate scientists for decades have shown us an undesirable reality, that centuries of human-induced greenhouse gas emissions have warmed our world by around 1 degree Celsius, causing extreme weather events to become more extreme, for ecosystems and communities to suffer, and for the unexpected to become the expected. In short, our world is getting closer and closer to a dangerous tipping point. But unlike a broken phone screen, we cannot just find a replacement for our common home. We will have to deal with the consequences for decades to come. Now, whether or not we deny or trust climate science, that's irrelevant to the very fact that this crisis is happening around the world. But it becomes very relevant in terms of how we respond to its impacts. The numbers, the reports, they overwhelmingly point to not only the degree of human influence on the environment, but also towards the solutions to limit losses and damages around us, either through reducing our emissions into the atmosphere, the soils, the oceans, among others, or through us adapting in sustainable ways. So how do we then build the necessary trust in climate science? We must present the findings of experts that are most relevant to our target audiences, especially regarding risks and solutions. Through our voices and our devices, through printed or social media, we must communicate these information to them, especially the marginalized and vulnerable groups, in languages and forms that they can easily understand and makes them feel empowered to initiate actions in their respective areas and capacities. For without truly accounting for and understanding their priorities and values, our collective ability to solve the climate crisis that will affect current and future generations will be compromised. The question now is this: which tipping point will we cross first? The climate crisis or climate action? The answer to that will be determined by our trust in climate science.
Thanks, John Leo. Another fantastic talk. Thank you so much for that. A real call to action for all of us. Let's go to our judges' questions now. And we're going to kick off the questions with Nadia. Nadia, what would you like to ask?
If you were to give me 3 things to do as an individual so that I play a role in us not going over that tipping point, what would those 3 things be?
For me, when it comes to 3 things, the first will be not to underestimate the value of the little things. Many people, I think, go too much with the big solutions. They want to make an impact as big as possible. But we need to understand that sometimes we have to start small. And I think that going for small solutions, like simple as turning off the lights or ensuring that you don't waste water when you turn on the faucet, I think that's very important as well. Secondly, I think it's also important for us to remain positive and hopeful. Of course, it's difficult to address the climate crisis because it's such a complex issue with many local variations of impacts. But we need to keep our hopes up because this is our world and we need to do everything we can to protect it, not just for ourselves, but also for our families, loved ones, and of course, humankind as a whole. And number 3, I would say that we need to remain passionate about caring for our world because it can't just be about passion. You also need to have compassion. To me, those 2 things are very important. And we need to be passionate about this when it comes to taking care of our planet, when it comes to caring for others. We need to make sure that climate action one day doesn't just become a solution, but rather a way of life. It becomes a normal part of us.
Thanks, Nadia. Great question. Well answered, John Leo. Let's move on to Yadvinder. What would you like to ask?
I have a question about part of it. What you're trying to do is get this balance between a call to action and also striking a positive message. So the balance between alarm and message. And how do you think through what the right balance point is? How do you get people to be concerned but not be in despair or alarmed at the prospect of tipping points? So what makes you think where the right balance point is in your messaging?
I think for me, the most important thing is to remain honest about the situation because we can't solve our problems if we do not recognize that there is a problem in the first place. And it's not about being an alarmist, it's about being a realist. It's about making sure that we understand what we're up against because whether we like it or not, regardless of our nationality, our occupation, or how much money we have, one way or another, we will be affected by this crisis. So it's important as well to make everybody feel that they can play a role. And again, going back to the debate of large scale solutions rather versus the little things, I think it's important to strike that rightful balance between being realistic that it's going to be a difficult challenge, but I think it's important that every stakeholder, whether it be the youth, whether it be academicians, media, government employees, or whoever, they feel that they can play a role because every action counts, especially given the recent report of the IPCC. And I think it's very important that everyone plays a role, no matter how big or small, because it counts. It always counts.
Well done, John Lua, a fantastic presentation. Let's again move around the world. We're going to India this time, and we'll meet Aditi Chandra. Aditi, you have 3 minutes to wow us with some content, clarity, and charisma. Take it away.
Billions of years ago, a giant star somewhere in our universe exploded. In this explosion, an atom was forged. An atom with 92 protons and 92 electrons. This atom floated around in a cloud of cosmic dust for years and years until it latched on to a hot ball of rock. The ball of rock was Earth. The atom was uranium. This uranium atom, which came to us from a dying star, has the power to save our planet. Because you see, when you split this atom, it releases massive amounts of energy. We need this energy. We need it to light up our homes and charge our cell phones and watch Netflix. Every day our appetite for energy grows. And right now, this energy comes at a grave cost to our planet. It comes from fossil fuels, which are releasing tons of carbon dioxide in our air and have brought us to the brink of a climate crisis. I'm a nuclear engineer, and I have a solution. Remember our tiny uranium atom? This much uranium in a nuclear power plant can produce as much energy as 1,000 kilograms of coal. And the carbon emissions? 0. But first, let's address the Godzilla in the room. Is nuclear energy safe? The overwhelming scientific conclusion is yes. Nuclear accidents seem scary, but they are very rare, and the chances of dying from one are ridiculously low. Let me put it this way. You're more likely to win an Oscar and then get hit by a falling asteroid. Have you ever heard of such a thing? In the meantime, how many deaths are being caused by air pollution from fossil fuels? 4 million every year. But wait a minute, what about renewables? Why can't we just build solar panels and windmills and live happily ever after? Because the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow. Even if we figured out how to build huge batteries to store this energy efficiently, the numbers that we would need are just mind-boggling. To power an average city, you would need to build 10 million solar panels or 1 nuclear reactor powered by that tiny uranium atom, which came to us from a dying star and has the power to save our planet. Thank you.
Aditi, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing it. You are contestant number 5, and that brings us to the halfway mark in this competition. And already we have heard about plastics, nanotechnology, notebooks, and star explosions. I'm impressed we've still got another 5 contestants to go. But don't go anywhere yet, Aditi, because your task is not done yet. We still have our judges' questions. Let's see what the judges have to ask.
As well as the risk of accidents, the other issue around nuclear power is waste and the fact that it's long-lived. So what would be your answer to those that say creating waste that could last for tens of thousands or many more years is a major issue where we have to worry about the nuclear power?
That's a great point. What I would say is that since nuclear power plants use a very small amount of fuel, they actually produce a very small amount of waste. And actually, all the waste ever produced by all the nuclear power plants in the world till today would fit in the size of a football field. And we store this waste super carefully. And if we compare the risks of that to the risks of pumping the toxic waste from fossil fuels into our air like every day, I strongly believe that it's much safer to go with nuclear energy and develop long-term solutions for storing that waste carefully.
Thanks, Edinda. Let's go over to our second judge. Alice, what would you like to ask Aditi?
My question is something that I just wanted to ask you about while you were thinking about writing this, is that when you talked about renewables, you used the often used phrase of the wind doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't always shine. And that's very much a fossil fuel industry talking point. And so I wondered if that was something that you'd thought about when you were writing it about I appreciate it's very difficult to negotiate that sort of area without necessarily maybe. Did you worry about playing into the fossil fuel industry in that respect? Yeah, I wonder if you had any reflections on that.
I didn't worry about playing into the fossil fuel industry, but I did worry about, portraying that maybe renewables are not a solution. So I strongly believe that renewables are, of course, part of the solution, but at the rate at which climate change is happening, we need something stronger until we build up our capacities for renewables. So I feel like both have to go hand in hand, nuclear power, renewables, and any other technologies that we come up with.
Well done, Aditi. Again, let's get back on our travels. It's time to go to Mexico. In Mexico, we'll meet Danny Daniels. Danny, what are you going to be telling us about?
What if I told you I was playing with earthworm poop? You're probably thinking, gross. Well, our plants, crops, our food, the planet, thinks it's one of the most beautiful poops in the world. Charles Darwin said, without a doubt, the earthworms are the most important creatures in history. We hear about bees, reforestation, protecting the coral reef, all extremely important subjects for sustainability. But we forget that just a few centimeters below the ground, there exists an incredible creature that produces an amazing organic material called vermicast, or earthworm poop, with an A to Z list of benefits. Like, did you know that vermicast can regenerate our soils? Did you know that its porous nature can absorb up to 40% more water, preventing flooding, like in agriculture? And talking about agriculture, vermicast in soils can bring rich biodiversity and nutrients, helping with production, quality, and reducing disease and plagues. Charles Darwin was absolutely right. Earthworms literally move the earth. And when it comes to global warming and climate action, they need to be part of the discussion. They need to be a priority for us because we are losing 24 billion tons of fertile soil each year. We're throwing away 2 billion tons of food 2 billion tons of waste, with over 40% of that being organic waste. And we're depleting nutrients in our foods, all because our soils are being killed with chemical fertilization and lack of biodiversity. I hate to say it, but we're heading toward a major food crisis in the near future. But guess what? Earthworms can help us fix all these problems. This vermicast is literally made by just throwing our organic remains to the earthworms so they can eat it. Such a simple action, but one of the major challenges that we have today. We need more homes and businesses and industries putting not the organics in garbage bins, but into composters. This is where entrepreneurship comes in with its creativity and its rule-breaking mentality, collaborating with vermin composting science with its hard data and evidence. We are dealing with the most sophisticated fertilizer machine in the world. And if scientists and entrepreneurs can come together, we can build a nature-based solution with innovation and technology to be able to mass produce vermicast worldwide with an animal that only sleeps 1 hour a day and works 365 days out of the year. Amazing. I am Danny Daniels, and I speak for the worms. I know a lot of us think that they're ugly, small, and insignificant, but the truth is that they can have such a massive impact in our planet that we'll be able to smell it in the air, taste it in our water, and feel it in our soils, rich with nutrients that consequently would put nutrients back in our food. So let me ask you guys a question. Would you rather bite into a rich, nutrient-filled fruit made from vermicast, or one with less nutrients made by chemicals that's causing cancer and destroying our planet? I know which one I would choose. And that's why I say earthworm poop is not gross, but the one that you and I need the most. Thank you so much.
Danny, the champion of the earthworm. We've got some questions for you. Let's go over to Alice for our first question.
I used to have a wormery, and I don't live somewhere where I can have a wormery anymore, but I miss the worms. They were my friends, as well as being a sustainable way of dealing with waste. My question for you is, I really like that you touched on soil science, and you kind of alluded to this in your talk. Do you feel that it's something that gets ignored a lot in the public debate about climate change and biodiversity loss and all the other environmental disasters? Do you feel soil is a bit ignored, or do you think we're starting to talk more about soil?
All right, so that's a fantastic question. So on an honest opinion, I think one of the biggest contaminators in the world is our organic waste, which is ultimately causing problems and not giving nutrients to our soil. So yeah, I think we're absolutely not talking about soil. I think we're starting to talk about it a little bit more, but it is such an important element about fixing our sustainability problem, is working on the soil. I mean, at the end of the day, that's where our food comes from. And so if we're not taking care of our soils, we're not taking care of our food, and that's why I say we're gonna have a major issue in the future.
Thank you, Alice. Yadvinder, have you got any questions that you would like to put to Danny?
So you make a persuasive case logically for why we should do earthworms. What do you think are the barriers for this being adopted at scale? And what would it look like if we really had earthworms as a nature-based solution working at scale? And what stops us getting from here to there?
Perfect. I think, first of all, again, no one thinks about earthworms and how important they are. So that's one. Two, a lot of people think they're gross. And so that's also a big problem. What we're doing in Mexico is we've created a system where we have smart vermin composters. And so they use hardware, IoT, all the things that, people that we use with the technology, so that people don't have to touch the vermin composters. They don't have to look at the earthworms. We have a system in which we do all the work for you. So for us, it is so important to eliminate that kind of gross part for people, so that they can participate in our project. A lot of people think earthworms are beautiful, like you and I. We love earthworms because we know how important they are. But I think that's one of them. And two is, obviously, we just need to put them on Main Street. We need to be discussing them more, because they are such a vital part of our sustainability, and they can do so much for us. I mean, literally, they can clean water systems, they can help clean the air, they can help put nutrients back in our soil. I mean, the benefits are endless. I mean, literally an A to Z list of benefits from earthworms in their vermin casts.
Thank you, judges, and well done, Danny. The earthworms definitely appreciate your effort. Do you love Danny's talk? Do you love earthworms? Let us know in the chat box. Let's get back on our virtual plane now and travel to India again, where we'll meet our second contestant from there, and that's Mayur Bonkil. Mayur, if you're ready, the stage is yours.
Once upon a time, no, this happened last month. I went to my village during holidays to meet my parents. My father, a farmer, was worried due to changing rain pattern. In recent year, maximum rainfall happened at the start of the season or its end, affecting India's crop yield. This is not the only issue. Look around. Intense heat waves in Europe, frequent wildfire in America, Australia, loss of sea ice, and rising sea level are all the results of climate change. One of the prime reasons for this is the accumulation of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, resulting in global temperature rise. Well, you may think that a slight temperature rise of 1 or 2 degrees Celsius in a global atmospheric temperature is not a big deal. Hello, it will affect ecosystem, biodiversity, and human livelihood. To avoid this, one of the promising options is to use renewable energy resources like sunlight and wind to satisfy the growing energy demand. It will provide sustainable energy and meet the net zero carbon emission target by 2050. If it is so good, why have you not seen 100% renewable energy generation? Because they are unreliable and unpredictable. For example, solar PV can generate energy only when sunshine is available, and wind turbine energy production depend on wind speed. The solution to this problem could be the integration of lithium-ion battery with the renewables. The 4 main components of energy chain are generation, transmission, distribution, and consumption. Battery can fit anywhere in this chain. The importance of lithium-ion battery in this century is highlighted by the 2019 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. The lithium-ion battery have become a technology of choice as it is lightweight and can store a significant amount of energy in small space. Therefore, to effectively use renewable energy, one must have safe, efficient, and cost-effective battery technology. My brothers and sisters, it's time to shift from fossil fuels to renewable plus energy storage systems. If not now, then when? If not here, then where? If not we, then who? Let's do it for our grandchildren and their grandchildren. Otherwise, after centuries, some animal species will tell a story that once upon a time, there was human on this earth. Thank you.
Well done, Meyer. I hope everyone watching at home still has a full battery charge as well, because we still have a lot of science in store for you. Time for the judges' questions now. Nadia, what would you like to ask Meyer?
Meyer, is this an area of research that you have a special interest in? Do you work with lithium-ion batteries?
Yeah, I work with energy storage system, a big scale energy storage, in specific lithium-ion battery, how to integrate with the renewables like solar and wind. So that's my area of interest.
Thank you, Nadia. Let's go over to Yadvinder. What would you like to ask?
One of the big challenges with batteries, I think, is also, once they're scaled up, is a supply of raw materials and the mining involved and extraction of those materials. And what do you think about the possible environmental consequences of large-scale use? And do we have enough raw materials? Can we do them without environmental damage?
Yeah, it's a valid question in this century. I'm not telling that lithium-ion battery is the silver bullet. In overall, if you want to propagate the renewable energy, we need an energy storage system. First point. Second, due to electric vehicle popularity, the lithium-ion battery become quite commercial, though it is costly, but prices are going down. You are right, it requires cobalt, nickel, and other precious materials, and extracting and mining those are the environmental challenge. I agree with that. But slowly, as the research is going on in energy storage and overall battery, we are coming with new chemistries like sodium-ion battery or flow battery or different kind of chemistry that don't require such a precious metals and that can be available everywhere. Right now, yes, it is a challenge. But if you see 20 year or 50 year down the line, as the research progress, we will have different kind of chemistry that will not require such a precious metals.
Thank you, judges, and well done, Meyer. Remember, if you think Meyer's talk was the best, then you'll get the chance to vote for it at the end. Once we've heard from all the contestants, we'll be telling you how you can vote for your favourite contestant. Back in our virtual plane now, where are we going next? To Vietnam. In Vietnam, we'll meet Minh Anh Lê. Minh Anh, when you're ready, take it away.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I think I can start now. Hello, people. At the age of 21, like many other undergraduates, I'm fully aware of climate change, but I just like try to protect our environment in every small action. But my trip to Dac in summer 2020 inspired me to take my action louder than my words. Dac is a Vietnamese province with diverse culture, majestic nature, and the world's largest coffee export volume. By the way, I'm wearing a Dac traditional costume. Anyway, climate change and multiple epidemics destroy the people and landscape in Dac, washing away the region's enormous economic potential. COVID-19 and diphtheria reveal how little virus can quickly become a pandemic due to human behavior. Today, modern technology can help to reduce the effect of the greenhouse, but it may not cover homes with the green grass. Our global summit attracted commitment of many policymakers, but failed in engaging the minority leaders. Also, our developmental policies are informed by the sound evidence, but also many communities are driven by their belief, custom, and cycle behavior. I want to refer to one story. The prevention of HIV in Africa by using condom is a classic example of using the diffusion of innovation theory, and it inspired me to apply that theory to influence on the behavior of people in Dac. We form a small group to develop a personal relationship with them, and we try to put ourselves in their shoes to understand their underlying motivation and abilities. We engage and empower communities by hosting motivational interviewing with the ethnic village leader to educate them on the importance of changing their behavior and protecting the environment. Their presentation allows us to gather feedback and spread our message. And in just 2 months with so many promising results, 87% of them reported that they had increased their awareness, and the change in their behavior had reduced the water pollution by 34%. But I was not satisfied with that. Right after I came home, I founded the Vietnam Climate Hub, where I can share the innovation and the best practice from the young people to prevent the climate change in Vietnam. And so far, my organization has attracted thousands of members till today. Again, I don't want to play small and stay small. I am proud to be the youngest finalist, but I am prouder to raise my voice to reach thousands of members in the vulnerable communities globally and sustainability. Well, I think we can actually prevent the climate change rather than just like cleaning its consequences by understanding people's behavior and touching to their heart, listening what they want and why they behave like that. Will you join with me to make our action louder than our words? Thank you.
Minh Anh, that was fantastic, and I hope policymakers were listening. Remember, they'll be arriving there in just a few weeks. Hopefully they are paying attention to your talk. That was brilliant. Time for your questions now, and let's go over to Alice.
What would be your message to the people at COP? You know, if you were able to, if they said, they were like, all right, we want to take you to Glasgow and put you on stage because we saw your great FameLab presentation, what would you use that stage to say? What would you tell the COP delegates?
Thank you so much for your question. Well, today, as you can see, the technology, the advanced technology can help for us to like prevent the massive problems, but some way we cannot touch the people heard of the village, of the rural areas. What I'm saying is that the technology cannot solve every problem. It's time for us to prioritize the emotional intelligence, combining with the artificial intelligence. It's time for us to put it equal. Instead of like just focusing on technology and the urban development, we can also touch the people heard. We need to understand why they behave like that, what makes them change, and how can us to make our action become sustainable. That's what I'm going to say if I have a chance to present in COP26. But overall, I think we need to know what people want, why they behave like that. We need to touch the people heard. That's what climate change prevention is about. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alice, and well done, Minh Anh. A great answer. Let's ask if Nadia has any questions.
So did you see any spillover effect from the people in the Daklak community to neighboring communities from what they learned?
Thank you, Nadia, for your question. So in my project, we have 2 months of continuous training, and the people, at the first place, they still cut down the trees, they still pollute the water, because I know that it's hard for them to change the habits that they have since they were kids. It's like their custom, the traditional custom. It's hard for them to change in just 2 months. But I think what we try to do is that we raise the awareness. We change gradually. And so far, from our organization and from my connection with people in Daklak, I heard people say that right now they change the small habit in their lifestyle. For example, they will not pollute the water near their home anymore. They know how to use clean water, and they know how to wait for them to throw away the waste. And for example, I heard people say that they talk about our campaign, they talk about project to another province, and they also connect with me to join with the project, and I think that's a very promising result. I mean, like, we cannot change everything in one night, but the thing in here is that we change people's mind because they know that we connect with them, we understand them, instead of just talking, you need to do this, you need to do that. I think that's the main part. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minh Anh. That was fantastic. Again, a challenge to all of us and the things that we can do. Let's move back to Brazil now to meet our 9th contestant. And in Brazil, we're going to meet Larissa Piero. Larissa, the virtual stage is yours.
Imagine that you are looking for a place to live, maybe raise your children, or just to live with your family. and you have this option, this beautiful, beautiful place with beaches and mountains and everything you need to have a good life. But there's one problem. This place also has chance of suffering from droughts and floods and heat and cold waves and extreme events that will maybe sometimes unpredictable. Would you live here? Probably not, right yet, but the last time I checked, it was our only option, and we should not take chances. The Earth's climate is a mechanism that works like a clock, and we are disturbing such equilibrium in a rate that the Earth is unable to accommodate. We are putting far too much CO2 in the atmosphere, burning fossil fuels to get energy. And the bad thing about this excess of CO2 is its ability to trap heat and warm the planet. For more than 800,000 years, the concentration of CO2 has never been so high, and it has never increased so sharply as today. Even though, can you remember the last time you spent a day without using energy? It's hard, right? Yeah, because energy is essential, and not only essential to you, but also essential to do science and the scientist's coffee. Renewables provide us with clean electricity part of the time, but we also need a source of it 24/7. And even more, we need high temperature heat for industrial uses like to produce cement or steel. Today, the majority of our heat comes from the burning of fossil fuels. The solution to produce clean electricity and heat 92% of the time is here. As safe as any renewable source, emitting 4 times less CO2 than solar, a tiny little pellet like this has the same energy as 1 ton of coal, and you won't need more than a soda can of it per year. Nuclear energy. Inside of this pellet, we have what we call fissile material, which is composed by atoms that, when hit by a neutron, undergo fission, releasing enormous amounts of heat. This heat can be used to generate vapor and spin a turbine that will generate electricity for industrial uses, or to produce hydrogen that you can burn. And the good thing about burning hydrogen is that you can replace fossil fuels, generating only water as waste. Hydrogen is not easy to get. You have to split a molecule of water into oxygen and hydrogen. This chemical reaction demands lots of heat that nuclear is very good at providing. We disturbed our planet, and we have the chance to overcome this with renewables and nuclear. But we have to demand from our leaders that they act as fast as possible towards the clean energy transition that must include nuclear. Thanks.
Thank you, Larissa. Again, challenging us to look at familiar topics in new ways, exactly what FameLab is all about. Let's move on to your questions now. And for your first question, let's go over to Nadia.
What got you interested in learning more about nuclear energy?
I came to nuclear energy because of climate change. I'm a chemical engineer, and my final project was about petroleum production, which is fascinating in the point of view of engineering, but actually I don't think that was a sustainable activity, and I couldn't picture myself in the next 40 years doing that, and I wanted something that I would think I would like to have an impact in the world. Then I decided to go to nuclear because I decided to look at the data instead of the public perception of nuclear.
Thank you, Nadia, and well answered, Larissa. Let's go over to Yadvinder. Is there anything you'd like to ask Larissa?
My question is one that we asked Aditi earlier. There was an obvious question. How do you respond to people who say that nuclear power is too risky, that there's too much danger of something going very badly wrong? What would be your answer to that question?
Thank you for the question, Professor. Yes, the problem is that it's a lot easier to touch people's minds than touch people's heart. And people doesn't want to hear about nuclear because they don't like nuclear. And it's a problem, a historical problem regarding nuclear. And I think scientists are to blame too, because they didn't want to discuss nuclear with people. And now we have the duty to do that, us young scientists. And I think that nuclear is actually has a big role to play in the climate change, in the chain of continue our development and reducing our emissions. And we have to make people look at the data, how safe nuclear is. We have little accidents in history, and actually the waste from nuclear is safely stored, and the waste from other industry is actually pollution. So we want to make people look And if I think they look, they will see how safe nuclear actually is.
Thank you, judges, and well done, Larissa. I love that. Did you love that watching at home? Let us know in the chat box. Thoughts, comments, compliments into the chat box. Tell Larissa just how much you enjoyed that. And let's get back on our virtual plane and zoom around the world to meet our 10th and final contestant. We're traveling this time to Nepal, and in Nepal we'll meet Pallavi Pokhrel. Pallavi, the virtual stage is yours.
Human beings are smart because human beings are sensible, because we just know when we're hungry, and smart because we've been to the moon. But let's face it, we humans are not always good at making decisions. One specific decision that we humans have made is the use of oil, gas, petrol, coal, whatever. And what has it resulted? It's resulted in a large amount of carbon dioxide or CO2 in the air. Okay, but what's the result? Well, the planet is getting hotter, there is a massive increase in deaths, diseases, destructions, loss of soil, plants, animals, insects, humans. But what if I told you that humans can actually decrease the CO2 from the air? And no, I'm not talking about planting trees here. You see, just like the dust particles in your room, millions of tons of carbon dioxide present in the air can be sucked in by a mechanism called direct air capture, or DAC. You see, direct air capture is just a fancy term for a vacuum cleaner, but for CO2. You see, just like the vacuum cleaner that you use to suck in all the dust particles from your room, the direct air capture sucks in all the incoming air into a chamber through a fan. Okay, and this chamber contains filter. So this filter contains CO2 absorbing solution. So quite naturally, the incoming CO2 sucks in the filter and sticks to the surface. Okay, but what happens to the CO2, right? There are two possibilities. One, this filter, when heated, the CO2 releases and gets compressed into cylinders, which can be further reused or even sold. And two, the CO2 binds with water and mixes deep underground, only to form stones. Yes, undisturbed and unbothered. Finally, the remaining air is released back into the air. This method is estimated to remove 4,000 tons of CO2 from the air, which is almost roughly equal to the emissions produced by nearly 900 cars. Magic? Nah, I call it science. Climate science.
Pallavi, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you for rounding off our 10 talks in such amazing fashion. Vacuuming the air, we're going to have to do that as well as vacuuming the house? Well, we'll find out later. But let's go on to our judges' questions now. Pallavi, we're going over to Alice first of all. Alice, what's your question?
Do you worry that technologies like DAC are going to mean that people are complacent about using oil and gas? Do you worry that people see it as a way of excusing them to fly around the world and do all sorts of other high carbon behavior?
Can I reiterate the question, what I understood? So you're basically saying that people are going to be, DAC is there, I'm going to emit carbon as much as I like because there's something to absorb the carbon. Yes, I think that is the main thing that I kept in my mind when I started the research, because it is so against what we normally, we normally think that there's a solution, so there's no problem. There's no, we have an incentive to create the problem. But people should look at it this way: as there's a shift towards DAC and other renewable sources that capture carbon, there is also a shift towards the budget that is spent. The government, the private companies, the scientists, the researchers that are going to invest more and going to be more interested in this thing. That means people are going to be less spending on fossil fuels. And it's not just to say about how an individual is going to react, but if a country itself is more attracted to the renewable sources and it is forced to, adopt this policy, I think we humans are just going to listen to our governments and just follow the renewable alternatives.
Thanks, Alice. Well done, Pallavi. We've got another question in store for you now. Let's go over to Nadia. What would you like to ask?
Where would they be placed? Are they already being used? And how much energy do they need?
If you were to emit 1 million tons of CO2, right? Suppose you wanted to like absorb or completely remove from the air. So this 1 million ton of CO2 would require 900 kilometers square worth of planting trees. But the same DAC system would be around 15 to 20 kilometers maximum. Okay, maximum. It depends on how you place it and stuff. Second thing, how much energy it would require. Yes, this is a concern. I'm not gonna lie. It can be energy intensive and cost incentive in comparison to planting trees. But then again, this plan so far, the newest and the most recent, I think you can just go to the news. It's from a Swiss farm called Orca in Iceland, just been planted, and this has been the energy is kind of high, but it's near a geothermal plant. So it's 100% renewable. The geothermal plant gives the energy, and the energy is used in carbon capture and it's stored back. So it's very renewable. And so far, whatever plants and pilot projects that are in Canada, USA, Switzerland, and some other countries, I believe they're all situated near a renewable power plant for now. But of course, there's research as to how we can make it less energy intensive, less cost incentive. And it's a new topic and it's very exciting topic. So I feel like there's more research in this field to be done.
Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, judges. Thank you, Pallavi. Thank you, all 10 contestants. We have now reached the end of our world tour, and we have heard from all of our contestants. A selection box of science without a single PowerPoint slide in sight. I loved it. Did you love it too? Let us know in the chat box. Remember, the contestants, the judges, and I am watching. Let us know what you thought of today. How are you going to respond to the challenges set out by our contestants? What do you think are the most exciting scientific ideas and concepts that were shared today? Let us know. I thought our contestants were absolutely fantastic. They have now done all they can do. I hope you enjoyed it, and the judges have a very difficult decision to make. Now, I know you're desperate to find out who is the winner. I am too, but I'm not going to let you know just yet. We're going to wait until the 30th of September in a special results show. The reason being, I promised you at the start today that you would get to have your say, and we want to know who your winner is. We have a link on screen, we have a QR code that you can scan, and there's a link in the chat box. This gives you 24 hours, lines will close at 5 p.m. UK time, 24 hours to vote for your favourite FameLab talk. Who do you think should win? When we come back on the 30th of September, you'll find out who the audience vote chose and also who our judges have chosen as the overall winner of FameLab's Climate Change Communicators International Final. Before we send the judges away to make a very difficult decision to pick one winner and two runners-up, let's see what it's like to be a judge. How have you found today, judges? What's it been like to take part in the competition?
Well, I finished this day with a glow in my heart. There was such positivity in the presentation, such joy, and such talent overall that I was blown over by every presentation, by the quality of the work they did and the positive energy that they brought to this challenging subject.
Oh, I loved it. I really enjoyed it today. And I love that we have a theme for a science theme on a specific topic for FameLab this year. And I'd actually encourage that to happen in future years. I love the passion that shone through with all of the communicators. And I can see most of them, if not all of them, doing this for a living in the future. It was great.
I was really bowled over by how many of them use space so well, and how from people who had tiny little carefully thought out hand movements to people who really almost painted an entire picture with just how they moved their bodies or brought on really clever but small props. But also one thing that was really striking was how calm and collected everyone appeared. I say appeared because I'm sure behind it they were really nervous, but it didn't show at all. They all seemed like they were totally at ease, and I think that's really important when you do these sorts of presentations because it'll calm the audience too and helps people appreciate you as an authoritative and engaging voice.
Judges, I am glad that you have been enjoying today, that you've been impressed and so dazzled by all of our presentations. Now your hard work begins. You're going to go off and make some very tough decisions. We're looking for 1 winner and 2 runners-up. So judges, go and make your decision. But for all of our contestants, I want to say a massive congratulations. That was absolutely fantastic. I was blown away with what you've managed to produce. Thank you so much for sharing those interesting science stories with us. A massive round of applause to all of you. This whole competition has been made possible by the British Council. So I wanted to pass over to Mono from the British Council, who tells a little bit more about what competitions like this mean for the organisation.
Hi, my name is Monamita Nag-Chowdhury and I'm the Programme Lead for the British Council's Climate Connection Programme. So the British Council is the United Kingdom's international organisation for educational opportunities and cultural relations. And the Climate Connection Programme is an opportunity to address the climate emergency through thinking about innovation, projects, ideas that really has got cultural relations at the heart of it. So working and engaging youth networks, looking at public engagement, policy engagement, and thinking about really what can we do with all those ideas to make an impact and really address the climate action that's needed. Through our work in education, arts, English language, science, we're able to bring together networks to really think about what's the innovation, what can be shared, and what can be really influential and important for the future, and focusing on legacy as well. So really well done to everyone that's entered this competition. Congratulations to our finalists. This is fascinating and inspiring work that's really going to benefit the wider community. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mono, and thank you to the British Council for making all this happen. It's clear how much the contestants have been enjoying and getting from this experience. And this has just been the end product of what has been a much longer process. The contestants have already spent 2 days together exploring the world of science communication and getting to know each other, learning how to tell compelling, interesting, memorable stories, and clearly having a good time. It's clear that the contestants had an absolutely fantastic time on the masterclass, and going by the comments in the chat box, you have loved watching what they've been able to produce. Keep the comments coming in. The love, the support, the encouragement. Join in with the show. Also, if you know what species of fly has been plaguing the Glasgow film set today, let me know. You've heard from science communicators, now it's your turn to be a science communicator. What species of fly is this? I live here and I don't know what it is. Tell me about them, because they're really quite annoying. Also remember to click on the link and vote for your favourite communicator. Who gave the best presentation? We want to know from you. You have just 24 hours. The judges are now off making their decision, and they will be back in the results show on the 30th of September. So join us then when you will find out who will be crowned the winner of FameLab's Climate Change Communicators International Final. See you on the 30th.